Hey, I'm Julie Rose. Welcome to Love What You Love. I'm an author, creator, and enthusiast, and I've always been intrigued by the things that people are super into. So every week, I'll introduce you to another fascinating human who's into really interesting stuff. Welcome back, or welcome. Usually at this point, I introduce you to my fascinating guest for the week. But today's mini episode is going to be pretty different than the first 23, so if this is your first time, I'd recommend going back and listening to those shows to get a sense of what this podcast is actually like from week to week. Okay, so cutting right to the chase. The podcast is going to be on a break for 2 weeks. I mean, there's just not much I can say about the last year, or the last 4 years, that hasn't already been said. It just feels like we've all been in this planet-sized press that keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, flattening and bruising in ways that are big and small every single day. And yet, I felt a surprising amount of encouragement and hope as well. Even so, back in April, I wasn't sure this was the right time to launch a podcast like this. A podcast that focuses on hope and love and joy. It turns out it was really a perfect time. Because I desperately needed that hope and joy. And I like to think that learning about what people love and experiencing their joy has given you the same. So before the podcast goes on this short break, I wanted to leave you with something cool. This poem by American poet Barbara Ras has been taped to my fridge for about a year. I'm sharing it with you today because it so perfectly conveys the heart-cutting beauty and inherent hopefulness of being human and alive on this planet. You can't have it all, but you can have the fig tree and its fat leaves like clown hands gloved with green. You can have the touch of a single 11-year-old finger on your cheek, waking you at 1 a.m. to say, "The hamster's back." You can have the purr of the cat and the soulful look of the black dog, the look that says, "If I could, I would bite every sorrow until it fled." And when it is August, you can have it August, and abundantly so. You can have love, though often it will be mysterious, like the white foam that bubbles up at the top of the bean pot over the red kidneys, until you realize foam's twin is blood. You can have the skin at the center between a man's legs, so solid, so doll-like. You can have the life of the mind, glowing occasionally in priestly vestments, never admitting pettiness, never stooping to bribe the sullen guard who'll tell you, all roads narrow at the border. You can speak a foreign language, sometimes, and it can mean something. You can visit the marker on the grave where your father wept openly. You can't bring back the dead, but you can have the words forgive and forget, hold hands, as if they meant to spend a lifetime together. And you can be grateful for makeup, the way it kisses your face, half spice, half amnesia. Grateful for Mozart, his many notes racing one another towards joy. For towels, sucking up the drops on your clean skin. And for deeper thirsts, for passion fruit, for saliva. You can have the dream of Egypt, the horses of Egypt, and you riding in the hot sand. You can have your grandfather sitting on the side of your bed, at least for a while. You can have clouds and letters, the leaping of distances, and Indian food with yellow sauce like sunrise. You can't count on grace to pick you out of a crowd. But here is your friend to teach you how to high jump, how to throw yourself over the bar backwards until you learn about love, about sweet surrender. And here are periwinkles, buses that kneel, farms in the mind as real as Africa. And when adulthood fails you, you can still summon the memory of the black swan on the pond of your childhood, the rye bread with peanut butter and bananas your grandmother gave you while the rest of the family slept. There is the voice you can summon at will, like your mother's. It will always whisper, "You can't have it all. But there is this." I'm so grateful to Barbara for this poem and her permission to read it for you. It can be found in her collection, Bite Every Sorrow, which I'll link to in the show notes, of course. So, yeah, We'll be back again on November 17th with some seriously fascinating guests. If you need some distraction and joy during the break, I'd recommend listening to or revisiting the Love What You Love back catalog. I'd also highly recommend binging the Ologies podcast. If you listen to Love What You Love, I know you're curious and you're open-hearted, so you'll love Ologies as well. If you want to keep in touch while the podcast is on this short break, we're on Instagram at LoveWhatYouLovePod and on Twitter at WhatYouLovePod. So keep loving the hell out of whatever it is that you love, and share that love and hope and joy with other people. You need it. They need it. We can do this. Thanks for listening. See you in a few weeks.
There's some good in this world, Mr. Fertile. And it's worth fighting for.